How are you? I'm TIFF's Industry Director Kathleen Drum, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the third exclusive session we're hosting in partnership with The Guardian. We're delighted to have this collaboration with a publication that is famed for its authoritative and courageous journalism, and which attracts millions of daily visits as the second most popular English language news site in the world. Before I introduce our guests, a reminder please that no professional photography or video recording is allowed inside the studio. However, we are live streaming to our website and YouTube channel. Feel free to tweet and post using the hashtags on the screen behind me to keep the conversation going with our online audience, and we know there's a lot of them. The chilling new film, Hold the Dark, is equal parts neo-noir and ancient myth, tinged with the supernatural but grounded in gritty realism. And it tells the story of a child gone missing, a murder investigation, and a community that is rife with tension. A Netflix original. We're just thrilled that the team has chosen TIFF for their world premiere, which is tonight at 6 p.m. at the Princess of Wales. Director Jeremy Saulnier is a master craftsman of moody, character-driven thrillers in which acts of violence are swift, merciless, and primal. His previous features are Murder Party, Blue Ruin, which was nominated for an Independent Spirit John Cassavetes Award, and Green Room, which had its world premiere in the Directors' Fortnight in Cannes. Blue Ruin and Green Room both had their North American debuts here in TIFF in our Midnight Madness program. Actor Jeffrey Wright has appeared on both stage and screen, notably for his Tony, Emmy, and Golden Globe award-winning performance as Belize in the Broadway production and subsequent television miniseries Angels in America. Praised for his chameleon-like qualities and his intense and intelligent approach to his work, Wright's filmography includes Basquiat, the Hunger Games films, Syriana, The Manchurian Candidate, the Bond films, Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, and the television series Westworld. Alexander Skarsgård is, I've been practiced saying that, every time I get it wrong though, is the son of acclaimed Swedish actor Stellan Skarsgård, and came to international attention in 2008 for his performance as a 1,000-year-old vampire in the hit television series True Blood. His diverse film acting portfolio includes Melancholia, Straw Dogs, Battleship, What Maisie Knew, The Legend of Tarzan, and The Hummingbird Project, which is also screening here at TIFF. Skarsgård won a Primetime Emmy, a Screen Actors Guild Award, and a Golden Globe earlier this year for his searing performance in the miniseries Big Little Lies. Riley Keough made her film debut in The Runaways in 2010 before featuring in Mad Max Fury Road, It Comes at Night, Logan Lucky, and The Discovery. She received a Golden Globe nomination for her lead performance in The Girlfriend Experience and an American Independent Spirit nomination for American Honey. Keough has established herself as one of the most versatile and talented young actors working in Hollywood today. The moderator of today's session is Gwilym Mumford, who is The Guardian's deputy TV editor and who writes about film, television, and wider popular culture for the newspaper. And just before I get our panel to come on stage, we're going to take a look at the trailer.
Dear Mr. Core, 3 days ago my son Bailey was taken by wolves. No one in the village will hunt them. My husband will come home from the war soon. I must have something to show him. So you come to kill it? To kill the one that took him?
I came to help if I can, to explain this if I can.
It's not the first time people died out there. The hillside is scattered with pieces of bodies.
That's what you get when you talk to the villagers.
People are dying. No, it's real enough. Help!
Leave us to the devils.
You're the one fought my boy? Yes. Can you raise the dead? No, sir. Then I have no questions for it.
Never seen anything like this before.
The behavioral term is savaging.
We're not talking about animals here, Mr. Core.
Well, if you say so.
What's outside those windows? It gets in you. Find it. Kill it. Kill it. Kill it.
Please give a very warm welcome to Gwilym Mumford, Jeremy Saulnier, Jeffrey Wright, Riley Keough, and Alexander Skarsgård.
Welcome to TIFF, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your time here. This is a film that hasn't even received its world premiere yet. That happens this evening, so we'll have to be very careful with spoilers and maybe give a nice introductory sense of what this film's about. So let's start with you, Jeremy.
Are you going to ask me to pitch the movie?
What was your elevator?
I'm terrible at that.
Wait, this is based on a book.
Yes.
When you read that book, was it did it immediately go in your head? Oh, this is a movie, or did it take a bit of time to bring to life?
Absolutely. It was given to me by Macon Blair, my friend of over 30 years, and my colleague. He starred in my film Blue Ruin, has just been a partner in crime ever since we started making movies when we were about 8 years old. But he, of course, knows me better than anyone else. And when he read the novel, it was given to him by, I think, someone at his agency. He immediately just said, "This is for you to direct. You must do this." And I'm skeptical. I've had material submitted to me, and I've sort of stiff-armed it. I just didn't have a way in. And I'm very reverent about writing and writers. And a lot of times you'll get a script, and you'll be asked to make it your own. And that to me means just sort of bastardizing or sullying somehow this original intent. And I want to preserve that. So I haven't been able to adapt anything yet. But Hold the Dark, when I read it, I mean, the experience was very akin to a cinematic experience, in that it was visual, the language was sparse. And what excited me most about it was, instead of the original screenplay or whatever material I have developed in the past, which is having to slog through draft after draft and terrible work and having to refine it and edit it, by the time you make the movie, you still have to follow through and execute it, but you're almost tired of it. And this was just like lightning. I was just struck by it and intrigued by it, and felt that I really was the person to not just make it my own, but actually be a caretaker and just translate whatever experience I had reading the novel to the audience. And it has a lot of sort of familiar elements that I gravitate towards. But it was, great for me to let William Giraldi and Macon Blair, who adapted the screenplay, do the heavy lifting. And I was just sort of there to again, help translate it.
Watching the trailer, it sort of sets it up as a sort of snowbound thriller, but within maybe 10, 15 minutes, it's already sort of confounded your expectations. Was that the kind of, for all of you, was that the sort of main appeal of it, that it kind of subverted your expectations? Jeffrey?
For me, I'm not sure if it subverted my expectations, simply because it's so expansive that it allows the inclusion of so many different things. So I think one of the things that Jeremy's described, that there's an intimacy that he found thrilling, but at the same time, obviously, you have these incredible vistas and a space in which the laws of nature take over as well, kind of behind the back of civilization on the far side of the Alaskan wilderness, which in this case Alberta served as the actor for that. So it was inclusive of many things, but as well as Jeremy described, what drew me to it was just this incredibly well-crafted script, just beautifully descriptive, and with a structure to it that was just like architecturally sound, beyond sound, just meticulously crafted, and the sparseness of the language, and then also the journey that Russell Crowe finds himself on was fascinating to me. Kind of not an anti-hero, not a hero, but kind of an everyman who's out of necessity asked to do certain heroic things that he's completely incapable or ill-equipped to do at the beginning of the journey. So there was just so much there to play with. And then, the opportunity to work with Jeremy, having seen his prior films. I haven't told him this, but my agent, I think I was working on a film in Indiana. I was working on a film in a prison up there. And my agent called me one day, because it was hard to track me down because we were inside an actual working facility. And he tracked me down. He's on the phone, and it was almost like he was like he was Pheidippides, like at the end of a marathon, like he collapsed across the finish line. He said, "Jeffrey, I found you." He said, "I have this script, and you have to read it. And it's Jeremy Saulnier. You've got." And he was just so thrilled about the combination of things, and just insisted that I read this thing immediately, and I did, and I was, and here I am. So.
What drew you to the film, Riley? To the script, perhaps?
The script drew me to the script because it was amazing. Macon's writing is incredible. And it was one of the best scripts that I had read probably all year at the time. And one of the most well-written scripts I think I've ever read. And just the characters and the world, and of course, Jeremy. I was a huge fan of Jeremy's and a fan of both of his films, massive fan. And so to me, it was like a very easy decision if he wanted me.
And Alex, what did you find in that script?
Well, I was in Germany shooting a post-World War II movie, and I was just ready after that to do something light and fluffy and fun. So the timing was perfect. I needed some levity in my life after that. So, no, I can just second what these guys said. I saw Blue Room when that came out and was blown away by it. I thought it was a masterpiece. I loved it. So kind of kept an eye on.
It wasn't Murder Party?
Well,
that drew you to this project?
I thought Murder Party was overrated. I missed that one. I saw that later. But it was Blue Room was
by
the
design,
one.
by the way. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
That was by design.
Okay. Well, that was, I thought it was a fantastic film. And so kind of been, saw Green Room after that and been kind of, kept an eye on this guy for a while and was hoping to find something to do with him. And well, like you guys said, it's an extraordinary script. It's so dense, and I was mesmerized by this character because he was so, I don't know what, it's almost like he exists in a vacuum in the movie and does his own thing and is his own world. And it was interesting because it was not, we tried to avoid creating an arc, which sounds contradictory almost, but there's something about him, again, existing in this vacuum throughout the movie, and I thought that could be an interesting challenge to try to, often when you work on, or when I work on a character, I try to find, give that some nuance, and it's a reaction to circumstances, but in this case, we often try to kind of remove the human attributes and almost see him as a wolf in a way, just laser sharp and very focused.
And of course, his wolf-like character's perhaps been sharpened by his experiences in Iraq. Tell us a little bit about your character and kind of his journey across the film.
So we find Vernon Sloan in a war overseas. It could be Afghanistan, it could be Iraq, and that's where he finds out that his son has gone missing in Alaska, and he's from this Keough, this tiny little village in Alaska, and he's basically lived his entire life there. So for him, it's I'm trying to tread carefully here.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, it's a hard one. He wants to find out what happened to his son, and nothing can stop him. But it was also important. We didn't. We wanted to avoid PTSD. It wasn't a reaction. What he does in the movie is not a reaction to what he saw overseas or in the war. And again, I try to remove that because that could. I didn't want it to be a trope of like, oh, well, then that happened, and therefore he did this. I feel like he just like cruises along throughout the film in his own universe in a way, with an extraordinary determination that I was fascinated by.
Jeffrey, your character Russell travels up to the sort of wilds of Alaska after receiving this really peculiar letter. You see a bit of it in the film there. What do you think draws him up there? Because the letter itself almost stands as a bit of a warning sign.
I suppose it could be perceived as that. But I think at the same time, maybe he's looking for a warning sign. You know, maybe he's responding to it because it is a warning sign. He has a broken quality about him, and he's broken for a number of reasons. Kind of estranged from family, but he's broken as well because his relationship to the wolf has been undone. By his having had to kill a wolf. There's a wolf who was said to have killed a young child in Yosemite, I believe, right? National Park in the States. And he's asked to go hunt this wolf, take it out, and it really kind of undoes everything that he has, his whole value system around the animal. And so when he receives this letter to come up to Alaska and find the bones of this poor child, he's drawn into it. I don't know, there's just something about the language again. There's something about the language of, this, finding the word bones. There's just something so resonant in the letter for me in reading it, and for him. I just think it becomes his destiny. It just becomes a calling, warning signs or no, that he steps into, and it begins his journey toward ideally a difficult redemption that he's seeking. Whether he gets there, we'll find out. But yeah, he's just pulled in.
Riley, your character Medora is a sort of unsettling, slightly almost ghostly, detached presence. Was there anyone you were sort of inspired by in creating that role?
Not really. Between the book and Macon's writing, there was a lot to draw from, and speaking to Jeremy and sort of trying to create like an otherworldly kind of creature. For me, it's like it's a weird thing. I don't necessarily like try and mimic people. It's more of like a tone or like a feeling kind of that I imagine, and I try and sort of embody that. And with Medora, it was definitely very odd.
There's no available references that you can compare.
I don't know if there's. Yeah, it's a weird one.
Slightly dysfunctional family situation.
Yeah.
Just ever so slightly, yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that filming happened in Calgary. Mm-hmm. I think I'm right in saying that it was around about minus 20 degrees?
We hit minus Minus 30 Celsius.
Minus 30
Yeah.
degrees Celsius. I'm imagining it was a pretty... yeah. I imagine it was a pretty punishing shoot.
It was. but by design. I mean, when you go all in to capture that, you're asking for it. So whenever a terrible storm would come our way, I'd be in my hotel room in the morning just like jumping for joy. Yay, it's terrible outside. Because the films I make, what I aspire to do for the sake of sort of realism and on screen and how we as filmmakers can sort of carve out the story and feel true atmosphere around us. The snow was like a character. That sounds kind of generic to say that, but we needed it, and I really didn't want to have everyone walking around in sort of spring-like weather and say, hey, we're going to put some breath in and post, and don't step on that green screen there, and and there's a bunch of foam snow coming in through a fire hose. It just it worked out. I mean, we picked the right place. We had the 3 snowiest weeks of the year. But I think as far as the elements, again, we were welcoming that, and it was tough. It was great as a filmmaker because you take a cell phone out, 45 seconds later, it's dead. Yeah. So the crew couldn't be caught sleeping, doing their thing. That was great, and I mean, for us, I mean, they can speak for themselves, but it was tough and a little bit jarring, but we welcomed it. But some of the local, Alberta grip team, were wearing shorts.
Crazy.
So,
But he was the coldest dude on set.
And as performers, how do you function in the snow?
I-
Well, badly?
Just like Jeremy said, of course it helps. We wanted that the intensity of that, the bone-chilling temperature, and like Jeffrey said, those vistas to actually be out there is you kind of you need that in a way. I'm very happy that it wasn't all green screen or a nice balmy spring day. It was intense. For Vernon, he's impervious to cold, so that was challenging because I'm not. So I had to look like super comfortable. He's not. He doesn't mind. It doesn't. Again, he's like so focused. It doesn't affect him at all. But I was having a hard time.
I guess for you, Jeffrey, you're allowed to look cold because you're slightly outside your elements, your character at least. Well, he does live he lives in Anchorage,
I think he's
doesn't he?
entirely in his element, and part of the reason, relative to your prior question, why he accepts this mission, if you will, is because he's someone who's more comfortable away from humanity than he is, inside of it, and more comfortable with the wolf than he is, and the elements and all of these things than he is even with his own family. So. He's kind of ill-equipped emotionally, but I think that's very much home for him, and I mean I loved it as Jeremy described. It was so informing of everything that we were doing, and it was just so unbelievably beautiful out there. The mountains. I hadn't been to that section of the Canadian Rockies. Spent a fair amount of time in the Colorado Rockies, but the geology is totally different. That kind of striated, angular, jagged, steep quality of the mountains there is just absolutely stunning. I drove all the way out. There's a ski area out west of
What's that called? Banff.
past Banff. Yeah. I forget that. Which one? Jasper. No, it wasn't Jasper. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Revelstoke. Drove out and it was like, what in the world? I mean, just unbelievably geometric and just like muscular mountains, So all of that stuff out there, I was just totally for it. The only problem is I wore the wrong snowshoes because I thought those looked better on my backpack. But I should have gone for. I had the shorter ones. I should have gone for the longer ones. So there were a couple times when Jeremy's calling off to me, Jeffrey, it's like, dude, I'm up to my thighs in snow, sinking down in the stuff. But it was. What else are you gonna do?
They did look better on the backpack.
They did look, yeah.
Good for camera.
Yeah.
It's quite fitting because your character wears the wrong shoes and has to
Yeah.
replace them.
Yeah, it was all intentional. Yeah.
Riley, how do you deal with the snow? Is it somewhere that you feel kind of comfortable?
Not really. Not particularly. I mean, of course, we had like warm-up clothes and those kinds of things, but it's really helpful. You wouldn't want to pretend to be cold. I think that would be very difficult. And I think something happens when you call action that it kind of all goes away, and you kind of in a different headspace, and you can carry on. For me, it's more like in the middle of takes when I'm freezing. But yeah, I don't know.
I'm imagining another of the challenges in this film is with your co-stars, the wolves. Were they well behaved, badly behaved?
Well, that's the fun of it, is they do what they do. And even as scripted, there were certain intentions that we had, and we wanted to sort of impose our will on them. And I think day one, we realized that's not happening. And there's a sort of centerpiece wolf confrontation, and it was, I think, really in keeping with, the aesthetic that I aspire to, the way I like to make movies, and I wouldn't say disgust, my aversion to artificiality and CG as a crutch. I didn't want the wolves to do what I wanted them to do, or what the script called for. If they wouldn't naturally do it, and they didn't, then I wouldn't do...
Like most actors.
I wouldn't create them in a 3D environment and have them form that sort of standard semicircle and creep forward and eyes on the prize. It was really re-editing and rethinking, and I think carving out a really beautiful scene that embraced what they did for us, and just put the onus back on the filmmakers to find how to bend to their will. And we have a very sort of naturalistic scene. We have all real wolves. There is one sort of hybrid wolf dog that would pay attention a little bit. You need one of those, but the rest is an actual wolf pack. And I wanted it to be true, and we kept it that way. So it was a good lesson, and I think the scene is actually better. It's less, actually, spoiler. Carry on.
Jeffrey, your character, Russell, has a very impressive sort of wolf howl that he does. I don't suppose that was you doing that howl.
Hey, man. Yeah. I know my inner wolf. Yeah.
Can you give us a rendition maybe now?
No. No.
That'd be really...
No, that would bring out,
No, because they respond, so you want to be careful.
Right.
Yeah, the Glenn Gould
Exactly.
bit is just...
We don't want to bring in the wolves.
Exactly. Everybody, we've got some work to do just yet, but
Truth
maybe
be
tonight,
told- Truth be told, when that iconic wolf howl scene took place, during, I think, 2 or 3 takes, when Jeffrey did his wolf howl, he actually got a response. We're not sure if there are wolves or huskies nearby, but they actually were talking.
It was me in my trailer.
I think it was right. Exactly.
Damn it!
Obviously, filmed in Calgary, but the setting is Alaska. It feels like every time you see Alaska in film, it's such an unusual place. We still know so little about it because it's so detached from the mainland of the US. What, have any of you been to Alaska at all?
No. I did a lot
No.
of research.
I have not.
Yeah,
From afar. On the internet, I have.
So, what kind of qualities were you trying to bring out of the?
Tax incentives. No. It's supposed to be on the outskirts of civilization. So it's really easy to sort of look at the geography of the Alaskan outback, and there's only a few places in the world that can approximate that. But for me, I'm a stickler for realism. But if I can match up my reference photos with where we're actually shooting, I'm happy. So Alberta was sort of, it ended up being the only real choice. There was a version of the movie earlier that was maybe going to go in New Zealand, Southern Hemisphere, in July, and it was greenlit, and my agent was double checking with me if I was insane when I killed it, squashed it, moved it, pushed it, because it just felt we can't do this to the movie. We can't take this Alaskan set movie. Again, North America was key. There's a lot of history there that we wanted to incorporate, and it would seem false. We would get beautiful environments, we would get snow and mountains, but we wouldn't get sort of the true North American feel. So it was important. And then we had the luxury on this movie, this is certainly scaling up for me, of searching and finding wonderful locations and building the entire village of Keough on a plot of land that was spectacular and served all of our needs, production-wise and location-wise. So we got to design it from the ground up, and that was a new thing for me.
The film is sort of built around this fantastic central set piece about halfway through it. I won't give too much away about what happens, but it's incredibly visceral. It involves essentially Jeffrey's character and a group of police officers in a standoff with a sort of machine gunner. How long did that take to film? Because it feels like a massive scene.
It was by far the most technical scene I've ever filmed. It was, I believe, a 5-day shoot. It became 6, but it was a huge 17-page chunk of not only a set piece action sequence with massive casualties and just mayhem left and right, all done practically. Again, not a single green screen was on set. But there was also like really important dialogue and lead up and a discovery of something sinister that Keough finds and this sort of convergence. It's one of the points in the script that deviate from the novel in that we incorporate Russell Core, Jeffrey's character, into it, and there was this sort of this collision of, as you say, it's a midpoint set piece that, as a reader, when I was going through the novel, it was just overwhelming and devastating and never ending, and I tried to keep that carried over to the film-going audience. But I was so terrified of it, as we all were, because it's so much stunts and practical, pyro and rehearsals and choreography and what have you, and a real light machine gun, which is scary. So you have to clear out a couple hundred feet in front of it when it fires, and it ends up being, because of the precautions, the safest thing you do, because give or take a few incidents. But it was so well planned, and it was a delight for me to film, because we had poster boards full of pre-visualized storyboards that we pulled out of a 3D environment. Again, having been able to create this whole village from scratch and have it built, and then be able to go into a virtual environment and get camera angles, it was very easy to then destroy it. But it was a milestone for me, because I have no complaints. All I do as a filmmaker is bitch about things I didn't do, or my failings, or I should have had more shooting days. With that sequence, we just had everything we needed, and I couldn't be happier.
He had it so well choreographed before we got there. I remember, I think one of my kids had a performance in New York, like a school play or something like that, and I read the sequence, and my character is described as kind of trying to hide himself from the mayhem, and I'm like, so Jeremy, I'm gonna duck back to New York, to check out this performance, and he's like, no, and the way he incorporated, just this kind of relatively minor stage direction of Keough's being was obviously so much of what was happening was being filtered through that perspective, and it was just, he had the whole thing just dialed in and calculated before we got out there, and it was good fun though. It was, as you can expect, we were boys after all, kind of dodging bullets and hiding under vehicles and slipping on ice, and they call it work, but that was good fun.
Yeah, because your character is a very central component of it, and as you say, you at one point you literally slide under a car. Do you like those kind of big physical moments as an actor?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I was, before my knee surgeries and things, I used to be a bit of an athlete, and so when I can bring, that quality to my acting, it's a great joy. And I've always tried to, kind of merge, the physicality or try to reshape my physicality, for any given character, and there's kind of a bit of an athleticism to that. So yeah, I love it, and the stuff that we got to do beyond that. I mean, kind of tumbling down the sides of cliffs and all of it. It was, it just gives you, it just adds an authenticity to everything. I was just, I came out one day and the stunt guy was about to do this fall. I'm like, hey man, what are you doing, man? What are you doing with my stuff? Yeah. Because for me, stunt guys are great, but they often make choices that you don't necessarily want to make, and physicality is 90% of what we do.
It's funny because I come from that school. Like, speaking of Macon Blair, the writer, I don't know when, because there are so many rules and union regulations which are in place for very good reasons, and safety does always come first on my sets. But I don't know when to intervene or let an actor do the thing, because I've set Macon on fire. Like, before we sort of became legit, he's been like near drowned in a creek. I've strapped rather powerful fireworks to his chest. I don't. So I really.
This wasn't on a film set.
Well, some would call it that. So I don't know. I mean, I know for me and for my buddies, but I always let other people, the experts, come in and tell me what's safe, because I've been hit by a car on camera, and it's fucking fun. It's great. 'Cause they're going slow enough, and I can do my role. But so I love it when actors want to do their own stunts. Again, I talk to the stunt coordinator and the ADs and the grips, and I go, is that okay? Is that okay? But Jeffrey was so physical, because we have him sort of aged up in some gray, and he's sometimes wearing glasses, and his physicality in the film, he's like semi-retired, but a couple takes, we have a techno crane, and he's like, all right, Jeffrey, kind of skid down the hill, do your tumble, and then go find that prop you need to find to finish off the scene. Like, go get the gun. And take one, we had this techno crane lined up, and we're under duress as usual. We have one day to do it. We have wolves over here waiting for us, and Jeffrey's did the big stunt. It's all happening, and it's chaos. And he's so fast. Like the techno crane cannot keep up with him, and I'm just sitting there like, yeah, idiot. It's like, what? Actually, I didn't say that because I respect the crew. But I was saying, I'm an idiot to myself. I lost that shot. It was going to be so cool. That's in the film, because it's really fun to try and chase him. It's this amazing thing where you can't plan for it. The operator is like, where is this guy? He's like supposed to be doing this, and he's like, he's already back. And that was fun to see. So I had to, one time or two, I had to all right, Jeffrey, you're semi-retired. You can't do this. He's got some action in him.
Fall slower. It's great though. I don't get to dive off, snowbound cliffs every day. So I'm like, yeah, man, let's do that.
And I will say in the final version of the movie, it's that particular stunt is 100% Jeffrey Wright.
It seems to be your biggest film to date. I don't think there's any question about that. What have been the challenges of sort of amping it up? Is it nice to be outside your comfort zone as well?
Well, be careful what you asked for, because I always, wanted to scale up, and it was a huge challenge. But it's been a while since we wrapped, and I think maybe to protect my own brain, I've forgotten all that. It was really fun for me, in retrospect. Because I had never done a war sequence. I had never done this much work with animals. I had never done such a huge action set piece before. and we were given some toys, but not a lot. We were still punching above our weight class as far as the budget and what we aspired to do and what the script called for. But you get through it, and again, some of the technical things were the easiest. It was just the general logistics of just making a movie and scheduling, and like the big shootout. Due to scheduling reasons, we had to pull that sort of forward to day 6 of our production, and so we had to then cram in all the stuff in the village that takes place before its pseudo destruction, and I wasn't quite ready. But then we get through it, and that's just leaning on the cast and the crew, as I tend to do. I as a director, I don't know what my process is because I'm just hanging on by a thread. I cast excellent collaborators, and I hire amazing crew members because you have to do a huge trust fall and lean heavily on those around you, and so that was fun. And then at some point, when you start to feel like, okay, no, this is how we're supposed to do it in standard, then you do speak up and say, no, actually this is how I do it, and you can move those 2 green screens out of the frame and bring in props, and we're going to do it ourselves.
Can I say, because we're in Canada, we had an incredible crew. This group of Western Canadians out there. I mean, they were just bringing it every day. A couple times Chinooks came through, some of the snow melted, and you would see guys all day like hauling snow to create snowbanks for us. It's like, dude, are you serious? It's like 12 hours later, and I mean, like sled dogs, man. And I'll give one thing away. There's an airplane sequence in the movie, and for whatever reason, we, the actors, weren't allowed to fly. So, and it works beautifully, but what is actually happening is the plane is on a gimbal about 40 feet in the air, and Badge and I are, talking in the plane. We're doing our thing, down on the ground in the snow, about 3 or 4 grips with ropes on the wings, like jumping up and down and twisting the thing around, including our guy in shorts. And I'm looking down and I'm going, look at these guys, man. I mean, they were just really busting it, and so committed to the story and to the film and to all of us, to Jeremy, and to this story. It was, and to the elements. It was good stuff. Good stuff. Had a good time out there in Calgary.
I think you've said that, Jeremy, that this is the highest body count in any of your films, which is a pretty impressive feat given the bloodshed in the 2 previous works. Do you have a specific number of how many people, or is it just too many to count?
No, it was, so the context of that quote was, while this film has the highest body count of anything I've done before, it also has intimate dialogue sequences. And so I was rattling off a list of other things, but no, I was not actually keeping track. There is a significant amount of casualties in this film, but the point of that was actually to divert attention from that and to sort of to explore new things, which is, and we did really enjoy blowing up that town. The scene itself, narratively, it's a whole different thing. It's not fun at all. It's pretty devastating. But it is the kinetic filmmaking, running around, getting the blood circulating, and letting crews, like when you say to them, when you fight hard, we're doing the plane interior, and I will not do green screen. The crew, they work their ass off, but they actually love it because they're doing their jobs. We're doing these practical effects, and you need everyone to be in tune. Someone who's just shaking, part of the airplane, if it doesn't ring true, you have to stop and say, you have to get it all in tune for it to make the cut. And that's what this was, like a way to like really sort of, I've written myself in these to very contained situations by design because I'm scared to write things I can't afford to put on my credit card. So films like Green Room, which is like 85% in a single sort of small concert venue. That was, again, I wanted to just really explore what that could be and know my limitations and set them for myself and operate within them. And this script and this novel it was an opportunity to just blow down all those walls and go have sort of an odyssey of my own as a filmmaker, and have a blast doing it. But some of the most exciting scenes for me were also just the very charged, intimate dialogue exchanges between two people in a dark cabin with a crackling fire and wind howling outside the windows. That was actually new for me to take the time, and it was exciting.
The violence in your films, when it does happen, is very sudden. It feels very distinctive. What do you think? What are you trying to convey through your violence? Do you want it to be as real as possible?
Absolutely. I mean, if there is a narrative, reason for the violence in my movies, it's to create genuine peril and elicit emotions that you have to earn from for the audience to experience. That's what I'm seeking now, and I've said it before, but like my home life, my family, it's full of love. I have 3 beautiful daughters, 2 puppies, a cat, the best wife in the universe who supports us. And when I sit down to watch a movie, and I want to escape, well, I have to go dark. I have to go scary, and I want to feel the excitement and the shock of not knowing. And when I read the novel again, I didn't know anything. I didn't write it. I didn't go through drafts. Everything was a surprise and a new revelation. So I wanted to just translate that. So the sudden shocks and violence is just how I tell stories, in that I want to surprise people. I want them to be riveted. I want them to not know where this is going, to not be able to predict the path of the film. And this film certainly has that.
It's got its premiere this evening. What kind of emotion, this is for everyone, what kind of emotion do you think you want people to be feeling as they leave the cinema? Are they going to be shocked? Are they going to be sort of heartbroken? What do you want them to come out feeling? Maybe Alex first. No, he's drinking.
No, we'll wait.
I always have a hard time answering that question, because I try to avoid, I don't want to guide the audience or for them to walk into a screening having heard me say, like, this is what I want you to take from this. It is very meditative, the film, in a way, even though it's very kinetic and violent and intense and very action-driven, but it's also very poetic, and so is Giraldi's The Novelist. It's an extraordinary novel. For those of you if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's beautiful. So it's again, I don't want to. I think it's. I'm incredibly excited for tonight. I can't wait to watch this. I've seen the movie, but on my own. But to be in a big theater with thousands of people I'm incredibly excited for tonight.
What about you, Riley? What do you hope they take from?
I actually haven't seen it yet. So I'm just really excited to see it, and I hope that people, have an opinion.
So you haven't seen this scene that we've been talking about, the massive shooter? Oh, right, you're in for a treat. And what about you, Jeffrey?
Shits and giggles.
I hope they have fun.
I don't have any, it's not, we're not trying to impose, a reaction, but I just hope it's an immersive, meditative experience, and that they just find themselves within it. It's very much, as Jeremy describes an odyssey. And so there are all of these mythic elements that come, into the frame, and so there's a lot to take from it.
It'd be pretty cool if everyone started howling like wolves after
that would be awesome.
The entire theater.
That would be awesome.
You lead the way, of course, Jeffrey. Howling.
What's that?
In the howling, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I can't do it now. I'm saving,
save it.
Save it for the night. Yeah.
I think we've got a bit of time for some audience questions. Does anyone have a question at all? There's a few here. Gentleman in the middle.
Hi, thanks for being here. My name is Rafael. I'm a producer based in LA. I'm shooting a TV show in Alaska in the near future. I have not been there yet. I'm going in a few weeks. I'm going to be directing. And this is my questions for Jeremy, or if any of you guys have any other comments to add. Doing your research, what did you find that added or changed your perspective of how about the Alaskan culture? I know you guys didn't shoot there, but is there anything that you could tell me that could help me in my research? Anything?
Well, offhand, I mean, having not been there, I wouldn't want to misinform you. You know, William Giraldi's novel, it was set there. Actually, the inspiration for you know, the incident, wolves taking children from a village, was actually from Pakistan. He read an article there, and just thought, where would he set this story? And he picked Alaska as a sort of harsh landscape. But the terrible truth is, and I'm glad you're shooting there, is that just from a production point of view, it was never an option for us. So I didn't do a deeper dive. But I mean, there's certainly cultural elements of native Alaska that Giraldi pulled in, and we tried our very best to honor Inuit and Yupik culture specifically. But knowing we couldn't be 100% that in Alberta, we designed our own sort of hodgepodge, where we incorporated lots of different faces in the people who inhabited that village, but made it primarily about the outskirts, and that whoever was willing to live in this village had sort of their own little edge of the world, and was separate from the city folk and all that. But we didn't get I don't want to give you any more specifics because I'd be just talking out of my ass.
We're long johns.
Any more questions? Lady here.
Hello. You mentioned that you changed some things from the book. I was just wondering how much you changed and why you changed it, and how it affected the overall story.
Actually very little. The only thing that Macon did, it was actually at some point hard to tell, because Macon's voice, he really sort of appropriated Williams, and we were having discussions about no, we can't do this scene because it wouldn't match this scene, and we're like, wait, which one is the novel and which one is the book? We forgot, and there's an amazing sort of relationship between Alex's character, Vernon Sloan, and his friend Cheon, who lives in the village. In the novel, their relationship is wordless, but all the dialogue that Macon added seemed just perfectly suited to that relationship. And I had forgotten, as you get into your script and you're taking a deep dive and prepping it and trying to know every single line, it was such an amazing meld. I couldn't tell the difference. What Macon did primarily was incorporate Jeffrey's character, Russell Core, into a few more scenes, because some of the structure of the novel was more compartmentalized, and they weren't really asides, because they were thematically very important to the film. But he didn't want everything sequestered. He wanted to join it together more efficiently, and that was the primary thing. But William Giraldi was part of the process from the very beginning. He was a guide to Macon and myself. It is deeply layered text, and there's a whole lot of biblical references, whatever. And we would reach out to him and say, "We need help here. We need a rudder," and he would give it to us. So it was one of those rare occasions where there was reverence for the source material all the way through, and we only deviated when we felt we had to bring it to the screen.
I think there's a gentleman here with a microphone.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming and speaking with us today. Really looking forward to seeing the movie tonight. Jeremy, this is sort of for you again. What's your writing process like? How do you know when you've come up with a good idea that you want to sort of continue to explore? And then similarly, with a project like this that you didn't write yourself, is there anything that you as a director sort of had with the screenplay, like any notes, like specific things that you knew you wanted to include in the movie that weren't necessarily in some of the original drafts?
Yeah, I mean, as far as this film and this script, again, the heavy lifting was done by William and Macon. And Macon knows me so well. When it was such an amazing experience, because he custom wrote this for me. I was always going to be the director, and he was always the writer. And so he just knows my stuff. He knows my camera moves. He knows my aesthetic. So when I got the script, I had very pointed, utilitarian notes, like cut this, we don't need this, this could cost too much money, and this dialogue, this one line Macon doesn't ring true, the rest is perfect. Whatever it is, that was what my attraction was to this project. Is like as far as my process of writing originals, it's just fear and paranoia and rejection. Meaning I never consider myself a writer. I've never taken money to write. I'm scared to, because people are gonna hate it. It's basically, I want to direct so bad. I want to make movies. I grew up in a collective where we didn't even have assigned roles. We just did stuff, like a dust cloud of cinema. We just did it. And I've only written things so I could direct them, because no matter what I did, I couldn't get cool scripts from the top of the pile. I got some from the bottom, and I was like, well, I could probably beat this. So that's my low bar. And so I wrote things like that. Okay, so my first movie, Murder Party, was just my high school friends in a warehouse killing each other. Done, I can afford that. Put it on the Amex. Second movie, Blue Ruin, I had been shooting, and I designed it just for Macon to star in. He's such a great actor and a wonderful asset. Had not been properly mined yet by the industry, so I was like, I'm gonna give him a leading role. This weird bearded dude, he wouldn't get a lead in any other movie at that time, and so, and sort of mostly self-funded that, but was able to sort of, and I was my own cinematographer, so I just engineer things, and I write things from an extremely practical point of view. How can I make this? How am I gonna shoot this? Where am I gonna shoot this? What do I have? A laundry list of props and locations. Well, that's before I write the script. Then I put that list here and I just refer to it. And so when I finish my script, I have it all lined up. I have my freebie location in Virginia. I have a free car I can destroy. Whatever it is, that's Blue Ruin. In Green Room, I had a little bit of money to work with and fear that I was a fraud and was going to be discovered any minute. So I just cranked something out. They've been sort of thinking about for quite some time. And before the financiers had a chance to really vet it and give me proper notes, it was already premiering at Cannes. So this is like, I was on that sprint, just trying to make things by any means. And Hold the Dark was my first breath. Like, oh, I have options here. I actually called my agent, because when Macon gave me the novel, I was like, well, how does this work? I called Maha up, and she was like, what's up, Jeremy? Well, there's this novel that came through CAA, and I think, Macon wants to write it, and I want to direct it. And how do we do this in the industry that I'm in? She's like, hold on a second. She comes back in less than 2 minutes. He's like, okay, you're attached as director, Macon's attached as writer, and then we sold it. But that was the first time where I was like, oh, it's the business. When I write myself now, I don't know if I can write huge, because I want to, maybe it's like past trauma, but I want to be able to put on my credit card if everyone says no.
I think we have time for one more question. Anyone? Lay down the front. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, great.
It looks like an amazing movie. Just by looking at the trailer, so congratulations. I would have loved to hear the how, but it's too bad I won't be able to see the movie tonight. So I think the gentleman back there asked already about financing. In Canada, we're very, very lucky to have a lot of financiers. So if you could touch a little bit on that, how to get financing in USA, is that something that, it's a process? You have to have some good actors, directors attached to it, and I guess it's kind of like the same here. But does that take away from, the process and the joy of making a film? Thank you.
Well, that's tough because, again, my experience with, as far as my advice to people is I don't have much in that I have only failed to get financing. I know how to sort of engineer movies that you can make with if you have an actor that you love, that you know personally, but to get access, I never did until I broke through, and that wasn't my doing. That was a lot of luck I mean, certainly hard work, and I'm very proud of the film Blue Ruin, but we got programmed first weekend at Director's Fortnight, and truth be told, we were only one of, like, I think 2 or 3 North American films that were actually for sale. So we sold, you know, and then that became a blip, and then we sold 20 territories, and then we're in the trades, and I'm a filmmaker all of a sudden. When I've been one for, you know, I was 16 years into my career, and then it started. So now, yes, I can have conversations, but we putting packages together, and getting a film funded. But before, I mean, from the outside, I don't know. I've only seen things fall apart. Now that I'm on the inside, you know, it's a fun, exciting conversation. But my advice is to build what you can from what you have, and it's always the script. That's the thing, and it's payola. You pay the right people.
Fantastic. So thank you to Alex, Riley, Jeffrey, and Jeremy, and go and see Hold the Dark.
Please do. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you so